Good morning and welcome back. Welcome back for those of you that are here for day 2, and welcome for those of you that are here for day 1. Before we introduce our keynote speaker for today, I want to take an opportunity to do a couple of quick little things. First of all, we are so excited to have you all here, learning with us and growing with us and trying to determine ways that are the best ways to meet the needs of our students. Our keynote speaker today at lunch will take us through a variety of things that will really ask us to think and make some different decisions. And then tomorrow, we're going to have our keynote speaker that talks a little bit about digital immigrants and digital natives. And I have to tell a personal story about digital immigrants and digital natives. About 3 weeks ago, I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old daughter. So if you said digital immigrant or digital native, you would know which category they fall in. But my 16-year-old daughter, I had called home one day. I left a phone number on a letter that had been sent to me in the mail, and I needed the number to return the call. So I called my daughter. Her name is Mackenzie, and I said, Mackenzie, right next to the phone, there's a letter with the phone number on it. Would you please get that phone number and text it to me? Sure, Dad, not a problem. She hung up the phone. I'm waiting for the text. Next thing you know, here comes the text from my daughter, and I was expecting the phone number just on my phone to be able to just click the number and dial it, right? And she sent me a picture of the letter. So she sends me the picture of the letter, and I have to, I can't see anymore, so I have to make it bigger. Flip back between screens to dial the number. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about with regard to that. So then my 14-year-old, 2 weeks later, my wife and I were on vacation. There was a significant time difference, about 4 or 5 hours. And both of my girls were staying at our house with my dad. He was staying with them for the week while my wife and I were out of town. So my youngest one sends us a text that says, Dad, the police came at 3:40 in the morning. Okay, Macy, the police came at 3:40 in the morning. Why'd they come? I don't know. Well, how do you know they came? They woke us up. So I said, well, tell me the story. She goes, well, I'll tell you the story, then I'm going to send you something else. I said, okay. So apparently, my daughters are both asleep, and somebody knocked on the door, and they woke them up, and they looked, and they saw a police car out there, and they saw a policeman at the door. But they weren't going to answer it. They thought there could be a burglar in the house. There could be somebody trying to break in the house. That may not be a policeman, so they didn't answer it. And which I thought was pretty good. I would have just opened the door, what's going on, And after that little incident took place, the phone rings, and it's the police department that says, this is the police department. We're trying to reach the residents at 1200 Cumberland, yada, yada, all the way down the line. Could you please give us a call back? And so I didn't know where that came from with regard to that, but Macy said, here's how I know they came. And so she had gone down with her phone and made a WAV file of the voice message and sent me a text of the voice message. So she's 14. Now, I'm not so sure that in her 7th grade or 8th grade classes they taught them how to make WAV files from voice messages. Or how to do all of those things, but that's definitely a digital native when it comes time to doing those things. Because notably we would have said, well, save the message until we get back and we'll listen to it. That's what we'd have normally had done. But needless to say, we called the police department, and our police department's so wonderful, they were just coming by and stopping by the house because somebody had left a dome light on in the car out front. So I thought, wow, we must live in a great place if they can just knock on the door and say, you left your dome light on. And so I asked my dad, and he goes, well, I wondered why my battery didn't start, why my car didn't start the next day. But digital immigrants and digital natives is definitely a change and a transition. At this time, I would like to invite our board president, Ms. Mia Price, to join me on the stage. We have a couple of recognitions that we'd like to make. If you were here yesterday afternoon for our awards ceremony, we awarded Vicki Sargent an award for support for helping us get TIA started and working through the program. And then we also provided an award to Mr. Robert Bostic as the visionary in a Vision Award. And there's another person that we would like to also present an award to, and that goes to Dr. Mike Mattingly, our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction. And let me just give you a little bit of a background for Dr. Mattingly and Tia. When we think of Dr. Mattingly and Tia, we think of guidance. The definition of the word guidance is the act of guiding, giving counsel, advice, consultation. All three actions you have taken upon yourself in regards to Tia. From helping develop a curriculum for the academy to devising topics and ideas that can have an impact on educators each year. We thank you for providing a steady hand and guiding us down a successful path. Dr. Mattingly, if you join us. And Dr. Matty would have been with us yesterday. He had an incident come up they had to take care of, and so he's here today. In all of his glory, he's ready to go. So we appreciate him being here. So now it's also time for Dr. Matty to come up and introduce our keynote speaker for today's lunch. So Dr. Matty, you can now have the microphone. Go from there.
I'm so glad to be with you today. I was out yesterday with kidney stone, so it's still with me. So I'm not taking much ownership of what I might say the rest of the day because I have a prescription or two inside of me. So bear with me. Raise your hand if you're here from Denton ISD. Okay. Raise your hand if you're from one of our neighboring DFW school districts. Yay! What if you're anyone else from the outside DFW area but inside Texas? Okay, great. What about outside Texas? Okay. Today's speaker is coming to us from Melbourne, Australia, and I figure he gets the longest distance traveled award. You know how you always do that at your high school reunion? So Mr. Phil Stubbs has worked with us here in Denton ISD for a number of years, and when asked if he would be so kind to come for TIA this year, without hesitation, he said he would be glad to. He loves Texas, and he loves working in the North Texas area. And just with our name change from Denton, TIA to Lone Star, we're trying to be broader from just our North Texas region and reaching into our global environment. And we're so happy and pleased to have Phil here with us today. Let me give you a little bit of his background. Phil has extensive global experience in the education sector, having not only worked with innovative projects in public schools, but he's also worked with educational districts and government departments in the United States, but also in Great Britain, in China, Australia, Hong Kong, and pretty much all over the Asia-Pacific region. He is the head of education of Learnology, and Learnology is considered Australia's leading contemporary professional learning, technology implementation, and solutions specialist. I will tell you that Phil, in my opinion, is a professional master at professional learning, and very much learn new ideas every time I see him. He is always on the cutting edge, and I'm just thrilled to have him be here to share with you. He will give you a little bit of a different perspective on the flipped classroom today, and so we're really anxious to get feedback from you with your thoughts. Don't forget that you can be participating in the meeting through today's Meet, you know, in the back room, I guess we call it. But that's always that extra conference, that virtual conference that we're all participating. But at this time, I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Phil Stubbs, all the way from Melbourne, Australia.
Ooh, okay, so it gives me a different perspective on the flip. Those of you that have any understanding of the flip, my idea about flipped classrooms is a little bit on the edge. So I've never done dinner theatre before, so I'm kind of anxious that you might throw things at me, but hopefully we'll all be on side by the end of the day. Everything I'm going to show you today, any of the links, in an hour and 15, there's not enough time really to give you all of the cool spaces you can go and get more, get content, get ideas, get creative spaces. So what I've done is I've produced a sheet, Flip 101, and all of those websites, the links, the cool stuff, get the heavy stuff out of the way in this session, they're all available to you. I'll tweet them later, so you want to get my Twitter account then. I'll also give them to Carolyn and the team here so they can send them out on the website, I guess. Okay. Right. Get started. Oh, great. There we go. Okay, so really, Flip 101, just before we get started, a very, very simple introduction to the Flip. Who's never heard of flipped classrooms before? Okay. I bet there's more. That's bad teacher stuff. Who doesn't know? Okay. I was in the classroom once. I know this stuff. Okay. And I've lost a pair of eyes over there. Okay. So, flipped classroom, very, very simply, it makes assumptions about teachers that I really don't enjoy. So I'm going to get those out of the way at the start. The idea that a teacher that stands at the front and projects at the kids, gives kids stuff in a lesson space for 70-80% of the time, and then the kids do a little bit with it, and then they go home and do other things with that stuff. I haven't been in classrooms like that in Texas. I haven't been in classrooms like that in most parts of the world. So forgive that overgeneralization, but essentially what the Flip says is it's going to take the stuff we traditionally give the kids, the stuff that we own and we transmit to our students, whatever way that might be, and we're going to have that bit of the lesson done outside. We're going to give the kids access to that information, because it is at the moment information until they turn it into knowledge. We'll give that to them. They can process that at home in some way. They can engage with that, hopefully. And then what they bring back to the classroom then are questions, ideas that we can explore and start looking at the application of that knowledge, synthesizing that with what we've learned before, coming up with hypotheses of where we want to go next. So it's flipping the whole notion of homework and what then happens in class. Okay, it's a very, very general, very broad description. So I'm going to get into that in some more detail as we start to look through. Hopefully what you'll come away from today with is a better picture, really, of what flipping isn't. Because I was at BLC conference last week in Boston, and I went to every session there was on flipped classrooms, because we're currently flipping classrooms, working with schools to flip classrooms in Canberra, Australia, which of course, those of you, Canberra, what's the capital of Australia? Canberra. Mike knows, okay. I did that in Boston. Sydney? No, okay. Right. So I can share some of that with you as well. I'll again give some links to some really cool stuff on the website, so hopefully Carolyn put that on. So why bother? Really, it's the why that's important. If the why is not important to you, then don't even start on this journey. The why for me is really about meeting a challenge that we're presenting. I think nobody's going to argue with any of this, hopefully, although I saw there were apples in some of those boxes. We've got a crowded curriculum. So many goals, so little time, and the curriculum often determines the way we teach. It forces us sometimes as educators to follow certain paths. And those paths, we have to cram stuff in. I only see my kids 1 hour a week, and we've got all this coverage to get through, and that can dominate the way we perform as professionals. And I've never met a teacher who wouldn't say they want more time in the classroom to do the stuff that really matters. Okay, and the Flip really is about giving you the time and the space to do that stuff, and having the less interesting part, the delivery, done elsewhere. It's also about shifting the balance in the classroom. The whole question that Alan November's always asking is, who owns the learning? You have to ask yourself in your classroom, who actually owns the learning? Who does the most work in class? You or the students? Every time I ask that question, often we use learner response systems to do this, the answer is always the same, it's the teacher. You are preparing the lessons, you're looking at the curriculum, you're looking at the standards, you're preparing your lessons, you're chunking that down to hour-long or 50-minute boxes, you're then taking that content, you're going and researching it, you're finding out additional resources, you're trying to make it interesting, you're then delivering that in class, and then preparing worksheets, you're going, if you've got those, who's as old as me in the room? Not a few, not a lot. If you're on the old bander machines, racking these things off, and Then you don't care what happens next. It's like Mike on his meds now. It's like, okay. So anyway, you think I'll have a few more of these. It's great. It's great. And then you get those out. And meanwhile, all that time you spent doing that, the students are just sat there waiting for it to happen to them. And then just to really give ourselves a kick in the pants, we think, oh, what can we do that'll give us a bit more work to do? Set some homework. Fantastic. Love that. I can grade that as well. It'll take a bit more time out of my life. And if you're... Who's married to a teacher? I don't know how you stay together. You know, a family that grades marks work together does not stay together. It's not, really, stop it. So I'm going to, and it's good because it's Administrator Day tomorrow, I'm going to actually tell you no more homework today. Homework is counterproductive, it's a waste of your time, and what we're going to do is free up that time you'd normally spend setting and grading kids' work at home and show you how you can use that more effectively. And I'll bring some research in to show that. When I say homework, I'm not talking about longitudinal projects that kids actually have to engage with over a period of time. That's different. I'm talking about those kind of things we set to do tonight, hand in tomorrow, the day after, and so on. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. So it's important who owns the learning and who should own the learning in the classroom should be the kids. Kids are like technology. You only get what you ask for. It's a really simple equation. If you don't ask for it, you don't get it. And right now in schools, we're not asking for it. So consequently, the kids are sat there waiting for it to happen. We need to shift from consumption to creation. Same story, not just in terms of consuming what you throw at me as a student, not just that. I need to start creating not just my own content, but my own learning pathways. The learning path in the classroom is generally determined by the teacher who's got, from up above, a set of learning standards being pushed down. And I'm just delivering those to my kids. And often, unfortunately, try as we may, we end up having to teach to the tests because the high-stakes testing, particularly not in America, is pretty mission critical. Don't start me on high-stakes tests. That's a whole hour and a half of something else. So if we want engaged, independent, autonomous learners who are able to think for themselves and are inspired to learn for themselves, the way we're working currently actually stops that from happening. We'll never get problem solvers unless we give kids problems to solve. But at the moment, we're doing it all for them. And then we wonder why they come to class and they can't do the things we want them to do. So the flip is in response to this challenge of actually motivating these kids in new ways and getting them to work in new ways and actually breaking free of a cycle that really hasn't done an awful lot over the last couple of 100 years. We can't keep trying to plug it and band-aid it and stick things over it and trying to just squeeze a little bit more at the toothpaste tube. We could actually fundamentally change the way we work, and hopefully you'll agree that's what the flip's about. That consumption and production model, shifting from consumption to production, I like to think of it as shifting. Critical consumption's okay. Whatever you give your kids, whether that's you at the front of the class, and please believe me and hear me, I am a huge fan of direct teaching. Nothing for me is a substitute of a good teacher in front of the class teaching them something. I don't mean just content delivery, actually engaging with their learners and teaching. I'm a huge fan. Please don't think for me I'm throwing that out the window. Absolutely not. But the kids have to be critical of everything they receive. They have to learn not to trust the teacher, not to trust the content. And the things they produce have to be creative. So we have to bring in a whole new set of literacies to help the kids to engage in the new ways we want them to. That's another challenge. We've also got what we call the new basics. There's thinking skills, problem solving, learning to learn. All of those things have to come into play in every single lesson, and they're the responsibility of every teacher on our campus, not just the innovators and not just the tech person who often picks up the load for actually developing these alongside digital literacies. Now, I heard what we were saying earlier about digital natives. This is my soapbox moment. I have a few of these. If anybody's if you get me in the bar, that's just the whole night, okay? But these are... Not that I love the digital natives. I love the story. But I want kids who are digitally competent rather than digitally confident. And most of our kids are digitally confident. It's like me when I first learned to drive a car. I was driving my mum's, it's an old Mini, it's a battered old thing, and I was really confident. Every time I hit a tree or a lamp, I was really confident. But I wasn't competent, and God forbid I was ever let out on the main road, because I just wasn't competent. I didn't know the rules of the road, I didn't know the rules of the game. And our students don't know. They are confident, but it's confidence from a point of ignorance about the risk, about how to engage, about... I'll talk about Google in a moment. Everybody's into Wikipedia. Look, I love Wikipedia. Well, don't start me on that one. Google, for me, is a huge issue in the classroom. The first thing the kids do to find anything out, they Google it. Okay? They Google it. Google only tells us what it thinks we want to know as individuals. So if I have a particular political view, whenever I Google stuff, it's just going to keep reinforcing that view. It's actually incredibly dangerous for our learners that we don't give them the skills they need to start engaging with information in new ways. So we'll talk about that in a little while in relation to the flip. Another soapbox moment, and this is, we've got to stop talking about e-learning. Every conference I go to is e-learning this, that, you've got e-credits and the like, that needs to stop as well. Just threw that one in. But e-learning is a reason for teachers not to engage. You go back to school, if you go back to school now as people who are into technology, who are inspired by technology, who are creative, and you've learned something new, you go back to school, I've learned about flipped classrooms, it's blah, 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 blah. Because of the nature of your role, and if you start putting an E anywhere near it, 80% of your staff can actually, that's not about me, I don't do tech, it becomes about the technology. We likewise in Boston, running in there, the British are coming. You go back, flip learning, and they're going to say, it's a right to bear arms, it really is, which of course, don't mess with Texas, but it is absolutely where you go. So e-learning for me should be these things. It's about inquiry, empathy, experimenting, explaining, exploring, about being expressive. It has nothing to do with something that at any stage in its life cycle has been plugged into a wall, okay? So if you are an e-learning advisor in your school or you're working in e-learning, get a name change straight away. Straight away you'll start engaging with new people. New people will find you interesting, okay? I'm not doing data mate, but they will find you more interesting if you haven't got an E in front of you. Rather than E, all of my team in Australia, we call them C-learning consultants. It's not about the technology, it's about what we do with the technology, it's about what we do in classrooms. We do a lot of work with schools that haven't got any technology. So C-learning for me is what it's all about. It's contemporary. Forget 21st century learning as well. Let's just not even go there today, because most of our kids we teach don't know anything else. It just makes us look old. So if for no other reason than an outright vanity, stop saying it. It's irrelevant, okay? When do we stop? Like 2050, or are we going to keep it going until it's over? Do we ever talk about 20th century learning? Not when I was at school. So contemporary, it's creative, it's critical, construction. Kids are engaged in construction, co-construction, they're collaborating, communicating. It's challenge-based, and the kids, importantly, have choice. Now, on that, Guy Claxton, really great, he's British, put that out there. He would add to that the 3 R's of learning, the new 3 R's of learning: responsibility, respect, and relevance. So anything you're doing in class should have those C's involved in it and those R's. Otherwise, I don't think it's contemporary. Okay. You can argue with this online, by the way. We won't have a debate about it now, or maybe afterwards over a drink. The other thing, this is my last soapbox, but it's not actually, I've got one more. The guide on the side versus sage and the stage thing, I think it's disrespectful to teachers. I don't know a teacher who is not a guide on the side and a sage on the stage, and who doesn't know when to adopt which role. I don't like when people talk about any kind of strategies that move the teacher from the front of the class to being the guide on the side. I think it's irrelevant. I say, but as professionals, we are more savvy than that. We know our job. We know how to educate our kids. And I think really it does us a disservice. So I don't even go there with the whole guide on the side approach. Don't like it. I'm a teacher. I do both. The other thing, this is my last one, I promise. Instructional technology. This has to stop. Oh my God. This is, I instruct my dog, sit. Okay, and it sometimes does it. But this is... You have the same thing with your students, and I looked up instructional yesterday in the dictionary and the synonyms. It doesn't do us a lot of credit. Commandment, decree, dictate. Direction I'll take. issue directives, edits, imperatives and command. It's not the kind of language we want to be using with our kids. We're not, and if we want to get, if it's going to be about the learning, how can we be how can what we do be about being instructors and instructional technology? I think we need to lose that term because it's locking us into this world of we present, kids sit there and listen. It's about them. They need to do the work. Well, they'll never do it as long as we keep badging ourselves as the people who should be doing the work and pointing the finger. Okay, so I think instructional, lose it. Okay, this is a quote from Alan November. I think it's great because it's exactly what the flip's about. It's a change in creativity, critical thinking, and a fundamental shift in relationships. Not just relationships within the classroom, peer to peer, teacher to peer, teacher to teacher, heaven forbid, but also the relationship with knowledge. So the way we engage with knowledge has to change. Okay, so they're the relationships we're talking about there. The role of teacher becomes more essential than ever. And that's both sides of that coin, guide on the side and sage on the stage, more essential than ever. There are a lot of people out there politically talking about the flip as a way of actually making do with other professionals in the classroom. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's more essential as students develop their capacity to question, discover, connect, collaborate and contribute on a global scale. It's about empathy. And they're empowered by an increasing direction and management of their own learning. It's about them having the set of skills to be discerning about everything they do, hear, see, read, you name it. Okay. So teachers more critical than ever. I talked a little about Google. Google sends me insane. It's really throwing down the challenge to teachers to actually start engaging with information literacies in a new way. You cannot go back to your classroom tomorrow unless you're armed with one thing you're going to do to develop the literacies of your kids. And again, that's every teacher in the school, not just the tech person, okay? This often falls on one person to do this. It's every teacher's responsibility. Kids have a right to be empowered with the literacies they need to engage with knowledge in the broader world, okay? It's a right. In school, we're not addressing the changing nature of knowledge and how meaning is constructed, the social way kids are learning, the story we heard earlier on. Your daughter didn't learn that in school. The way they connect with one another globally, the way the way knowledge is presented to them. The Google example's an interesting one because if we all Googled the same thing today, we'd all get different results on our pages based on our different who we are, how old we are, what our relationships look like, what our political interests are. It will feed us more of what we want, and that's a dangerous way to live in the world. This book here, The Filter Bubble by Eli Pariser, is an amazing book. It's a really quick read. It's $17. I'm not on commission, but I would recommend it to any teacher to start working with their class. It's incredibly powerful. It's quite scary, the world we're letting our kids into. Gives loads of, when you read it, you'll have lots of aha moments and pings as to what you might do about it as well. So we've also, all of those things come together, it just makes school less relevant to kids. And, kids are learning in different ways outside of school, and the culture that they're developing on their own outside of school that hasn't got rules of engagement and hasn't got the safety net built in, hasn't got the literacies they need, it's actually quite a dangerous space to be. But kids are aligning with that rather than some of the things we do in school. So there's failing to see aspects of school as being relevant anymore. We've got to adjust that. The other thing that I'm really keen to do, because it's a technology conference, is actually look at all the things you've got in your classroom and how if you start to flip in ways I'll show you in a moment, it can really connect the dots of that ecosystem, start joining together your one-to-one devices, any mobile devices, the 4 machines you've got and 2 of them don't work that sit at the back of the classroom, the whiteboard, if you're lucky enough to have one, the projector, I don't say on whiteboards, the projector, if you've got a projector in your classroom as well. How these things start to come together, but importantly as well, your online world that you live in. You've got C2 now in school. You all using C2? Beautiful. So, you will be. Okay, go to Sarah Huswitz's session on C2, creating your school pages. She's fantastic. So, it ties that together, it gives that purpose, and it gives that online-offline balance between what happens in there and what happens in the classroom real significance. So do start thinking about how getting high leverage value out of everything you've got available to you in the classroom, including your kids. But I mean, it's important that we actually look at moving beyond the innovators, not just in terms of the tech, obviously, but in terms of anything that happens in school. It tends to stay in silos, and it tends to be that one person's vision being realised in their classroom, often under the radar of leadership, or if your leadership's behind it, then fantastic. But it never seems to translate to an entitlement model for every student in the school. What we really need to do, if you're going to start looking at your flipped classroom, is very quickly move beyond a pilot stage for that flip, because you can't have students experiencing a very different way of learning in one set of classes and then going to another set and having something that's much more traditional. Because if you ever want kids to disengage with a teacher, that's when it's going to happen. That's going to broaden the chasm of the digital divide within your campus. So think before you jump into this. So what we're looking to do with the flip is actually look at a system where the system that we work in conforms to the needs of the learner, rather than at the moment the learner's needs having to conform to the system. The timetabling, the fact that our schools are curriculum-led, the way we test, the way we group kids by age and everything else. Okay, so we want that to change. So, innovative approach to learning. It should be, often it's not though. Done badly, and I've seen lots of flips done badly, or things that call themselves the flip, it's absolutely not innovative. Innovation, there's a great quote by Michael Fullan, innovation is doing new things in new ways in order to do them better. Okay, new things in new ways to do them better. If I create a video of a part of my lesson and give that to the students to watch at home, and then bring that, what they've learned from that and their questions from that, back into the class the next day, I haven't done anything new. If I send my kids to Khan Academy or to watch a video online, I haven't done anything new. It's still somebody giving the kids the information that I think they need, just it's happening somewhere else. It's happening outside that hour-long lesson. Okay, and then people are badging that as extending learning beyond the classroom. It's not. It's just doing more of the same. Okay, extending learning beyond the classroom is all about the learner and having them thinking beyond the lesson. Okay. Done well, and I'm going to show you what I think done well looks like in a moment. I think it's absolutely an innovative approach. Don't get caught up by the technology. Whenever I saw 3 sessions last week at the BLC conference, and they were all about technology, and they were fantastic, and they were exciting, and I got excited by the possibilities. But the reality is, it's what happens in the classroom that's important, and I'll prove that to you with a clip we're going to watch in a moment. The flipped classroom is a structure. It's not a pedagogical model. Okay? It's not problem-based learning. It's not discovery learning. Okay? It's just a structure. And that structure fits on top of whatever pedagogical model or framework we're currently working with in school. It should connect. If it doesn't connect and you're trying to do something else, what often happens is you end up doing the flip, but actually there's no pedagogy associated with that. So it's a waste of everybody's time. So it is just a structure around which you put the meat on the bones with your pedagogical framework you're working with at the moment. That's problem-based learning, fantastic. And it's really important you get that right as well. If you haven't got a pedagogical model or a quality teaching environment in your classroom that demands engagement from your students, if they're not going to engage in class, they're not going to engage at home watching a 10, 15-minute video or listening to a podcast, okay? They have to want to learn. So there's challenge number 1. So the flip's in 2 parts. One part deals with homework. The other part deals with what happens in class. The what happens in class bit is the significant piece. Homework, whatever. The trouble with homework is it's a stick to beat teachers, and we do it to ourselves. Okay, so I do know what the word for that is, but I won't use it in Texas. Okay, so we do that to ourselves, and we grade it. We're often grading for the parents. The kids get the feedback way too late beyond any relevance whatsoever. And often it's just drill and kill. It's more of the same. The other thing about homework is instead of actually developing the kids further, it's often practice. And the issue with practicing at home is practice makes permanent, not perfect. And the opportunities there and the way the brain works is for kids to actually learn misconceptions or walk away from things with ideas that are not correct. And then somebody later on has to invest a whole lot more time unteaching that. And it's much more difficult to unteach something than to teach something. Okay, so homework is severely problematic. And in this Economics of Education review, they showed that homework, other than partially for math, is entirely ineffective. It doesn't add any value to what kids are doing in the classroom. It doesn't add any value to test scores or learning. The massive studies, I mean, anybody's familiar with John Hattie's work, Hattie, in Australia and New Zealand. He's actually a phenomenal writer about assessment and the way kids learn. And he's done a whole load of grading of all the things that actually matter in class. Quality teaching, bang up there at the top as you'd expect. Homework, way down there, matters not a jot, which is English for just doesn't matter, okay? So you think about how much time you spend setting, thinking about, delivering, and then grading homework assignments. And again, I'm not talking about those long-term projects where the kids have to work at home independently and then hand something in several weeks later that they've been continuously thinking about and working on. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those one-offs and those short burst homeworks we set. You're wasting your time. You're wasting their time, and you can spend that time on things that I know you all want to do. Okay, I'm not talking skiing or sunbathing or anything else. So homework's got to go. I'm going to show you this clip. It's only a very short one. This is a school, and I met this guy last week at the BLC conference, that's become the poster school for the flip. Really smart bloke. Have a listen to this. He's going to show you, very quickly, I have to rewind that, how the flip has absolutely transformed the way his schools work. His entire campus, it's a very disadvantaged school in Detroit, incredibly disadvantaged. They haven't got very much technology whatsoever. So, often we show these things, it's like, yeah, that's okay, they got one-to-one devices, they got it all. This guy hasn't got a lot in the classroom whatsoever. So, again, the kids, very disadvantaged. I can give you stats if you want to see them.
How can you let 52% of your students, one in every two students, fail in your English, math, and science class, and even 28% is too high for social.
My name is Greg Green, and I am Clintondale High School principal and curriculum coordinator for grades 6 and 12. When we evaluated our failure rate last year from our freshmen, we found that in English language arts, our freshmen were failing at 52% rate. And in mathematics, they were failing at a 44% rate, science, 41% rate, and then social studies, 28%. And as a principal, it's just unconscionable to have that going on in the building.
To continue doing the same thing and think you're going to get a different result isn't going to work. So we sat down and we said we got to try something different.
Because we felt like the class time, was probably the most crucial time that we had with students.
We decided to flip it and try spending more time working with the students in class and having them get the lecture and the lessons at home.
By reversing the instruction model, what we did is we actually seen a dramatic reduction in percentage of students with it. And in ELA, this percentage just went from 52% to 19%. In math, we went from 44% to 13%. And in science, we went from 41% to 19%. And the social studies went from 28 to actually under 10%. And so what we've seen is a huge reduction in failure by reversing the instructional model, which doesn't cost money.
Okay, so huge gains as a school in a very short space of time. Obviously, it took leadership, took the staff to be on board, it took vision, and to incentivise the staff. And the big incentive for the staff there was the fact that we're selling you time to do the things you do best. So prior to the flip, over 50% of freshmen failed English, and 44% failed math. Look at the discipline statistics there, and the behaviour in class as well. We talked about this last week at the conference. Phenomenal change. And it didn't take them long to get there. Obviously, a lot of hard work. There needs to be a change the way the classrooms are organised. The teachers need to change, they need to rethink about what they're teaching. And rather than what they're teaching, the conversation in the school is about how am I going to teach this? And the teachers here buddy up with somebody who doesn't know their subject when they're creating materials such as videos, podcasts and the like. They're quite heavy into videos in the school. And they buddy up by the teacher who is not from their discipline. That teacher will say, look, I still don't understand. And if your friend doesn't understand, your critical friend doesn't understand, I'm not selling this right. Because all the evidence supports the fact that the better you know your subject, the harder it is to ask the right questions. So having that buddy system going there is really working for them. Now, interestingly, at that school they've got an 80-20 rule. So 80% of time with your students should be spent helping them to analyse, synthesise information, apply what they've learned in those 5-10-minute videos to other disciplines, to actually start making sense of that input that they've received from the teacher. And it is from the teacher. The teachers here all pal up and they make them and they share videos across classes, so you have got some consistency. And they also use a fair degree of found videos on the internet from places like Khan Academy, we'll talk about that in a moment. And then 20% of the time is spent on additional support and instruction. Okay, but the teachers, rather than spending 20 hours per year per subject having close contact with each individual student, when they're flipping it now, each student gets between 20 and 80% of teacher support in the schools. The time to student to teacher time ratio has gone right up. And don't tell me if you're not spending more time with your kids and understanding their needs better, you're not going to do a better job of teaching. Now, why I use this example is because the reality is this school isn't really flipping. He thinks he is, but they're not. Okay, what they're doing is they're creating all these videos, and it is, again, it's video-led. They're putting these videos onto their social networking site, like the school website, like your C2. The kids access these videos at home, and then they come back to class and they engage with them. For me, there's several bits missing there. If these are kids who didn't engage in class, why will they engage with the video at home? I watch things on TV that I'm not engaged with all the time. Even things I'm told to watch professionally, I'll be watching them and I'm kind of only half watching it. What will motivate the student to actually engage with that stuff, or to even watch it in the first place? Okay. So what they've found themselves doing, some kids just didn't watch the video. So how do you then engage with the next lesson? Because I haven't watched the stuff. It's like when I was at school, I didn't read the book, miss, and you sit in the corner. What do you do with those kids? And those are the kids who most need support. So what the school starts doing is they start playing the videos at the start of the lesson. So for me, all you're doing is digitising what I would normally do with my kids at the start of the lesson. So where have the raised outcomes come from? Well, they've come from the fact that the teachers are rethinking their engagement with the kids. They're actually only delivering small chunks of information and they're allowing the kids to do more. Teach less, learn more. Okay, that's what's happening. The relationships in the classroom and the relationships with knowledge has changed. They're not expecting kids to go outside of school and do things. You'll know in your classes kids who will not do that. Or if they say they do it, whatever. Okay. So I use that example as an example where, the first thing people think about with the flip is, well, we've got to make all the videos. No, you don't. Okay, there are ways of actually re-engaging your kids. And when I come back to my proposition for you all at the end, you'll see where this all fits in. But what we do want, and what the flip is amazingly good at, is giving us our kids back. Okay. So, talking a bit about homework, now back to the classroom. Flipping and that creation of video and so on, the flip in its traditional sense, I think, is a good first step on a continuum that should take you a lot further. I think the flip is too small, okay? It doesn't present us as educators with a big enough challenge. So I've broken down to a few steps for you. It has to be underpinned by engagement-rich pedagogical models. I mean, PBL, I know some of your schools engage with problem-based learning, understanding by design. These are all things you're used to hearing, yeah? Yes, Phil. Okay, authentic literacy, okay? Peer instruction, negotiated meaning, everything you do has to have purpose and authenticity, that whole C learning approach. that demands active engagement. If you haven't got kids engaged in the classroom, why would they be engaged beyond? You've got to develop that hunger for learning. And there are, these strategies, authentic literacy, UBD and PBL, all do that. It's about change relationships. If you haven't got that, don't even start flipping because you are wasting your time, okay? It's all about the pedagogy. Pedagogy first every time. In fact, stick that in front of anything to do with technology. It's pedagogy first all the way around. So that flipping the classroom with that, I'm start off the first stage of that continuum would be to go, as that school did, and get some found content. And then progress from there to maybe, well, okay, that's found, but it's impersonal. That guy doesn't know my kids as well as I do, so I'm going to start creating my own, okay? And that content can be paper-based. It can be, you name it, whatever you want to be, podcasts and the like. So to make this work, you really do need to have archives of resources. You need a bank of places you can go to get this stuff. You also need the capacity to create your own recording software. I do mine on my iPhone. It's just the quickest and the easiest, and I've made a lesson, 5 minutes. And I can do that anywhere I happen to be sat. So I'll do them on the iPhone, whatever. The great thing is, of course, the kids can rewind those lessons, which is nice. They can't rewind the teacher. They can wind the teacher up, but they can't rewind the teacher. You've got those online environments, I think, are mission critical. Those of you that aren't using online space, flip or not, you absolutely need to be. That's where kids can have depth and quality of conversations that will feed back to your classroom and give you data that will inform your practice. And giving your kids a voice is critical. If kids are going to be commenting on or reflecting on the video, whatever you've given them, and raising questions or issues they don't quite understand, and that's going to inform your teaching, you've got to give them a space to do that, and you've got to have visibility of that. Otherwise, who watched the video last night? Yeah, no, you didn't. I want to see some evidence that you've engaged with it, okay? And those online spaces are mission critical. So C2, get right in there. So before we go any further, just to sum that up really, great pedagogy trumps subject knowledge. Okay, every time. Doesn't matter. And I'll show you an example now of some research that was done with a Nobel Prize physicist who had 2 grad students take his class and teach it better than he did. Okay, so questioning skills, organisational strategies. If you haven't got these things, don't start doing anything next. Okay, and I'd say the same for any kind of change. If you haven't got this going in your classroom, there's nowhere to go. Seriously, you're at a dead end. So that's not criticising anybody's teaching, but if you haven't got a lot of this stuff going on in your classroom, you really are on what we'd call a hiding to nothing, okay? You're beating yourself up and getting nowhere. This piece of research, Carl Wyman, University of British Columbia, he won the Nobel Prize in 2001 for physics, a shared Nobel Prize. I think the other guy's a Brit, so I'm on it. There's a study in 2010, in 12 weeks of teaching, 2 identical catchments, 2 identical classes. He taught his class the way he'd always done it. And this guy is an education advisor to President Obama, and not saying that means anything, but just throwing it out there, okay. And he's right up where it matters, and he's a huge advocate of the flip. 12 weeks of teaching, 3 hours a week, 3 hours of lessons a week, 3 classes. The people teaching the flip class were 2 grad students who he'd given the challenge to. You're going to take a class for 12 weeks. And this is the strategy you're going to use to actually deliver the information these people need. You're going to use the flip. At the end of the 12 weeks, all groups were tested, and the variance in scores was massive. So a Nobel Prize-winning physics teacher, great knowledge, was trumped by strategies that employed great pedagogies. Not the flip was the structure, but the pedagogies they deployed alongside that absolutely had a massive effect in the classroom. So pedagogy, and I'll fight that one with anybody, trumps subject knowledge. Okay, so don't get bogged down with the fact that I teach history or I teach math. Those grad students probably teach it better. Okay, so just and watch them, they're coming through. Interestingly, MIT have a program at the moment where they're getting grad students to produce flip videos, content videos, for your students from K to 12. I'll show you some of those in a moment. So the process, how do you do it? So first of all, those found sites. Some on the screen here, I've got a list of these, don't have to write more down. I've got all the web links to these and little bits about each one that I'll mail to Carolyn, but if you tweet me, I'll just tweet those this afternoon. All of these, whatever you produce, you've got the rewind button. So kids can go back again and look at this content. This is found stuff. BBC, God bless the Queen. Fantastic. We've got Bright Storm. Some of these you're going to know. Khan Academy, you're all familiar with, yeah? Yeah. Khan Academy. iTunes U. Yeah. Neo K-12. It's American. And it's K to 12. What Neo K-12's done is they've gone through YouTube, they found all the cool, against the US curriculum, they've married up all the clips that will support the curriculum. They've done the look at the searching for you, and then with those things they've associated a whole lot of quizzes and images and stuff you can do with your kids. Fantastic website, just neok12.org. It's on the sheet anyway, so don't read too much about it. And there's the MIT stuff. I'll just break out this, I can show you some of this stuff. The issue I have got with this is, fantastic. Yeah, I want my kids to have access to expertise beyond the classroom. And these, in Khan Academy, there are people there who are physicists teaching my kids physics. There are people there who are mathematicians who can perhaps do this bit better than I can. Or even if I'm doing that, they've got another perspective or another method of doing it. Okay, and that's, then Bill Gates has just given them a whole swathe of money to broaden it away from sort of the sciences and maths and all the stuff that, I don't get. Into the arts and other areas of learning. So that's growing and growing. And if you are into Khan, then of course the great part of that is the analytics it will give you if you register your class with them and be able to track the data of your students' movement through these learner journeys that Khan will support you in creating for your kids. And data in the classroom is everything. The session I'm doing tomorrow morning is all about data, minute by minute access to data in your class rather than waiting to the end of the school year. What I'm going to show you is, just go live to this now. Not that one, is the MIT site. These are MIT students who have gone right the way across the curriculum, but they're particularly focused at the starting point was on chemistry, was maths and science. They get engineering, chemistry, astronomy, biology and physics. They're all searchable. And these guys have made quality assured videos to support you in the classroom working with your students. Or even better, flipping your classroom. The videos are there, okay? Again, the link's on the site. It's a great, great space. I'm not going to focus too much on that. Other than stuff, means how stuff works. Anybody use how stuff works? I love it. Got to love it. Stuff about aliens on there this week. It's great. But the big news, Emmy used TED Ed. Yeah? You're all using TED, I hope, for yourselves. Ideas worth spreading, yeah? Worth sharing. This is lessons worth sharing. Now, the news, Carl Anderson, who's the curator for TED, he was the keynote at the conference last week, and he was talking about how they're developing, what they've actually started to do with TED. They're offering 1,000 animators to schools to help teachers create 1,000 lessons using animation. I'm going to show you one here just briefly because people say you can't flip ELA. What about ELA? We can't flip ELA. It's not about content, it's not about stuff. Yes, you can. Okay. So here we've got one. I won't play the whole thing. This is a great teacher working with a great animator, supported by, maybe we're not going to see it, supported by TED. That's my little girl.
Why do we cringe when we hear Shakespeare? If you ask me, it's usually because of his words. All those thines and thous and therefores and wherefore art thous can be more than a little annoying. But you have to wonder, why is he so popular? Why have his plays been made and remade more than any other playwright? It's because of his words. Back in the late 1500s and early 1600s, that was the best tool that a person had, and there was a lot to talk about. However, most of it was pretty depressing, with the Black Plague and all. Shakespeare does use a lot of words, One of his most impressive accomplishments is his use of insults. They would unify the entire...
I'm not going to play those insults, because it gives you a reason to go home and have a look, doesn't it? It's fun what they are. So it's great. Now, TED Ed has pulled together educators. You can post your own content on here, you can create your own channel from here, put your kids in here, but it allows you then to take that video and flip it. So if I want to flip the video now, I can build questions around that video that the kids, so I can see the engagement at home, the kids can actually engage with it in different ways. I can add additional information to support their learning. I can actually shape their thinking and start to channel that in different directions. I can give them choice of things they might want to watch next, or other things they might want to, places they might want to take this. So I can now watch that, and if you've signed up to this, it's free, you can create your own. So I can put the think box in there, and I can put my questions into the box. To dig deeper, I can add additional content. And then the and finally bit might be to start wrapping it up and giving them some things, what's going to come next, things that are going to come next. Now, there's one that I've just played with. And then you can preview that. The news for those of you that are really tech integrated, which of course you all are, so you wouldn't be here, is that once you've got that lesson prepared, it will then embed in C2 with the discussion space. So it becomes a really cool space where learning and sort of the conversations around that learning can sit together, okay? You could just bang the video into a discussion space anyway, but the fact that TED Ed is supporting you in actually making that transition to flip is incredible. The other thing they've got in here now is best flips, where they've got a whole team of people of curators who go through here and actually look at this content and then push it forward as the good stuff floats to the top. It's all in best flips. You can also search by subject or series. But the cool thing for you, when you go to YouTube to support your teaching, don't go there anymore, go to TED Ed, because they've done it for you. So I can go in here and I can search for, photosynthesis. There's one here anyway, fruit power. But I can search for what I want, and they've done it for me. So save yourself a bit of time. We're selling time today, okay? Save yourself time, go to TED Ed. Get yourself an account, totally free, and you're up and running, okay? There's no excuse not to make that transition to that first stage of flipping and putting your kids in front of expertise other than your own tomorrow, if you've got those pedagogical structures in place, with tools like this available to you. And again, it's all on the supporting document I've got for you. So MIT, there are others. Just about every university in America now is sharing their content for free. It's out there, and they're initiating similar programs. So you're never going to be hard-pressed to find something that you want in terms of engaging your kids. So that's your first step. It is critical that you have the kids engage with this stuff. They've got to show, they've got to do something that shows that they've level of engagement. Whether that's developing questions, sharing ideas. In elementary class, it might be 3 sections of your conversation in C2. What I found, muddy water, clear water, transparent, opaque, whatever. So the kids put their ideas in different sections. Simple things like KWL, so I can see what they know already. I need to see where we need to go next, because that data will inform what I do next morning with my class. And with something like C2, you've got absolute visibility to that data. So you take that back, you look at it overnight, you're in there. You don't have to grade it. It's a homework that you don't grade. You look at what they're saying to each other. You look at the learning conversations that are happening. That tells you where the muddy water lies, what I need to cover tomorrow. Even better, ask your kids, what should I teach in tomorrow's lesson? Having watched this, what do you want me to cover? Okay? And that'll inform your practice. Okay? It'll inform my groupings. Who sits next to whom? This will sort me out. Okay? That is how we raise standards at the other school that we watched in Detroit. The other thing, of course, you can generate your own content. They're my kids, will do it my way. Okay? It can be a document. It doesn't have to be using high-end technology. It could be that you create a YouTube channel. It could be a podcast. Again, how many of your kids have got mobile phones in the classroom? They can be doing their homework on the school bus. They can be listening to it. We found in Canberra, when the teachers got together, and they often did this in pairs, and had conversations rather than sat in a room like some kind of, like I haven't got a life and a serial killer. I'm sat rocking on my mother's rocking chair, dressed in her nightdress with a dagger, and I'm going, and photosynthesis occurs when? No, you don't want to do that. You want to get your life back. So you could sit down, and what our Australian teachers do is they pair up and they have a conversation about whatever it is. It's light-hearted, it's no pressure. And what they found in the tests in Canberra, we love high-stakes testing in Australia. I mean, it's ridiculous. When they have their tests at the end of grade 5, what they found is the kids are actually reproducing some of the little funny anecdotes they heard on the podcast, but they're reproducing in a way that actually shows understanding. So they are listening and they're thinking. They're not just watching or it's on in the background. They are engaging with it, and they're watching them again and again and again. And they're coming to see the teacher the next day, and they're looking forward to what they're calling the next episode. Okay, you don't have to do this, by the way, every day. Okay, it's by degrees. So do think about that. You've all got those things that will do it in your pocket now, I'm sure. Think about things like Audacity, GarageBand, things you might have going on your school. Audacity is a free app, so we love free. Start a YouTube channel or a Vimeo channel where you're going to put this stuff when it's done. It won't all sit on C2, so where will you put it and start to store it, okay? And don't start thinking it's mine, nobody's having it. Think about amplification of who you are. If I've created a great video on division, why can't I put it out there for anybody in North Texas to share? Or where can I put it that anybody in my school can share, or the teacher in the next classroom can use? I've sat and made this. Why keep it to myself? I don't own the copyright anyway. It's owned by Denton ISD or wherever you come from. So get it out there. Okay. Things like Jing. We all heard of Jing before? Screen capture. We love it. Yep. People at the back love it too. They're just not letting me know about it. Yeah. Okay. Screencast-O-Matic, have you heard about that? Sounds a bit something like the 50s, doesn't it? Screencast-O-Matic. The thing with Jing is you've got to load it onto your machine, yeah? So in some networks, straight away, the gatekeeper of learning in your school is the network manager. If he doesn't say it can go on, there will be none of that here, thank you, okay? The Screencast-O-Matic is the website. It lets you just do exactly the same thing as Jing. You can do it, the kids can do it on the fly, and they're off, okay? It's good to go. The kids don't need it at home on the software they're using. Who's using iPads in school? Come on, this is Texas. Must be more of you around here. I know how much money you got. Get away. Edu Creations. It's a free app for your iPads. It's like a permanently on Jing. You just talk to your iPad. You can write on it. I can show what I've been doing, and I can record it, and it records it straight away. And guess what? It lets you embed it in C2 or any other online space you might happen to have, so it can be shared. Okay, which brings me to my next point, which I'll come up to in a moment, is to where we're going wrong. So having produced those, we put them up. The kids then have to reflect, question, organise that information in ways that will inform what I then do next in my classroom. The questions are the data I need to inform my practice. If you like, that's all my assessment for teaching, okay? So, just to recap where the flip in its traditional sense takes us, my issue with it is it's still been driven by the teacher. We're still creating the learning pathways for the kids. It's still based on what we see as our goals in terms of the curriculum. And as such, we've put a lid on learning. We're only going to go that far because that's where the video will take you, or that's what I will take you in class. There's a lid on it. It's not inquiry-based. That's what we teach, and that's where we need to go. That's the standard, okay? It's assessment for teaching rather than assessment for learning, which, of course, has its place. Everything I do, I want to be informing my practice minute by minute. Teachers still directing the students the content they need. I'm sending them to this stuff that I've selected, okay? It's just amplification of what we do in class already. It's just we've got that extra 10 minutes that they do somewhere else. It's like extending my lesson by 10, 15 minutes, okay? It's still a consumption model. The kids are still waiting for it to happen to them. They're consuming this stuff. What happens in the classroom shouldn't be. They should be engaging with it, collaborating, peer review, peer teaching. It should all be going on the back of what's happened in the online or out of class space. But it is prescriptive. And it still won't engage those kids who are not engaged with school if you haven't got that strong underpinning of a really strong pedagogical framework. Okay, so I'm offering an alternative because I had a bright idea. They happen twice a year. They're really good. Sometimes they're really good. Sometimes they're not. The bright idea is that we don't flip your classroom, flip your kids, and they will flip the classroom. Okay. It's less work for me, and it's less effort for me, and it means I can be smarter. Remember that thing about homework shouldn't be more or less, it should be smarter. So should teachers. Not that you're not smart people, because that lost in translation in America, the word smart, but that's means something slightly different for us. Flip your kids. Okay? Now, how do you do that? It's chicken and egg things. They're very slightly different variation here. The flip process starts with you giving kids some form of content and putting that somewhere that they can access them or directing them to some content. They then respond to that in different ways, asking questions, hopefully, or saying how they feel about it. There's a response. And then that drives what happens in the classroom. When you flip your kids, the process actually starts in the classroom. It's driven by conversations we have in class, and it's based on individual need and choice. We don't all need to go and look at that video. There's loads out there. It's the web. It's based on interest, and bring awe and wonder back into the classroom before we're so driven by overcrowded curriculum standards. Okay, bring awe and wonder back. Kids need to be able to follow pathways that lead nowhere. That's okay, because that's how you learn. It doesn't matter if that path is not going to take them quite where you want to go, because there's a whole lot of other kids going a different way. But what we're going to get is a comparison, because you've looked at that, you've looked at that, you've looked at that. If we put it all together, we've got depth and breadth of understanding. But significantly, your kids have that desire to solve problems, and if they've come up with it, then they've got buy-in. So they will engage with it in the classroom, and they'll engage with it beyond the classroom. Okay, so flipping your kids starts in the classroom, okay, which is where we do what we do best. Also gives you time back. So I've sold you a bit of time already on not grading assignments. Your principals will be sending me hate mail. But not grading assignments, not setting assignments, you've got a whole load of your life back. This process, I also advocate that you don't spend hours and hours a month on planning. We're still all right? You can tell who the principals in the room are because the lunchboxes start to open and the apples are in the hand. Don't spend all your life on planning. Plan in the classroom, not in the broadest sense. Plan with your kids in class. Involve them in the planning. And once again, you're being prescriptive. Why will they engage if it's not about them? They don't see themselves in your planning. Okay? Plan this in the classroom with them on board. But to do that, if I just skipped one, to do that, you absolutely, to get those critical consumers and those creative producers, you have to give them the literacies they need. They cannot go out to the web, follow their own learning pathways and make their own choices unless you give them these literacies. If you're in an elementary class, lower down the school, then, putting the kids out there, there are ways and means of doing this. You can use a Digio account. You can use Google custom search and just fill it with websites connected to the subject area you want them to look at. So they're only searching within that little box that you've given them, okay? For more able students that are further up the tree, then they should be going and they should be researching from multiple sources. They should be looking for diverse viewpoints. They should be going global and thinking, well, that's what we think in America, but what does somebody else think about it? What would... I saw Michael Moore on TV last night about gun law. Don't start me on that one. But what do people in the UK think about that? What do people in the UK who've been through similar processes, climate change, how can I find somebody else who's doing the same thing, okay? How can I get beyond that very narrow perspective that's been offered with that one video or my one teacher, okay? We've got a course bringing things like safety and functional skills and sorts of, but it's that capacity to engage with knowledge in new ways, the way we have to get to break through that Google bubble, and to find the knowledge we need and that we want, and to find things that we don't know are there that are critical to that happening. Kids can't create their own learning pathways if they don't know where to go, okay? Problem solving in schools is often given to kids with They know the process, but they don't know where it's heading. Real problem solving has a goal in mind, and the kids have to work out how to get there. Okay, we need to start thinking about the way we have kids solve problems. But they need these literacies before they can do any of this stuff. So you have to, and again, it's the responsibility of every teacher to develop these, not just the people who have any kind of engagement with technology. The other thing is, why are you making the videos? The kids can create the videos. Their assignment is to go away, find this information, process it, package it, and create. Think about your Bloom's taxonomy, those higher order skills. Create something for the rest of the class and wrap around that a flip. What questions will you ask of your peers? How can you not catch them out? How can you extend their learning? Where else might somebody want to go if they knew this? Where would you take them next? Okay, start producing your own tutorials. We've got schools in Brisbane, Australia, who are doing this every week with their kids. And they're only using simple stuff to do it. Okay, not just videos, they're doing it on paper as well. And I'll show you one in a moment. I'll show you a couple of kids in a minute. You've got inspiration now. Who's used atomic learning? You've got atomic learning here? Atomic learning, you've got your own custom atomic. You can make your own channels. You've got your own school TV. It's there. You've already got it. You don't have to pay for it. Get your kids' videos in there. Math Train TV, have you seen that? All the math in Math Train TV are videos created by students for students. And the beauty about having your kids, not just in terms of them actually owning the learning in the classroom, is that kids will tell you, all the research shows kids learn better from their peers because the teacher often knows too much. Okay, think about all that stuff you did at college and then forgot about the sort of Vygotsky zones of proximal development, where the kids learn from one another. Okay, it sounded great at the time, but yeah, whatever. But this is where it comes into its own. Kids learning from other kids, just in time, the bit they need next, the missing piece of the jigsaw puzzle. You can do that. The kids can do this. We've got kids in year 1 doing this with Educreations on their iPads. Okay. Things like this shot on the right there is a Glogster. Who uses Glogster? Hey, that's the biggest response I've had all day. So Glogster, fantastic. They can make their online posters. They can put them in C2. They can put those on those posters. They can put video. They can put their podcast. They can do the whole thing in that environment. It's beautiful. And you've got your classes. So you can see what everybody's doing. We don't want to install that. Okay. We don't want to do that. Okay. Think about something. What about time? This is a student-created video. You can see how old she is. Now, it's a video. It could just be a screencast using Jing, which is always there. Just bang it. Show me how you did that. Boom, 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 and they're off. Okay? It's not difficult. You've got space to put these things.
By using a sewing machine. It's really simple. To start sewing, you'll need a sewing machine, a pedal, a stool, a right amount of material, a pair of scissors, a kit of pins, and a template. First of all, we need to make a template, so the material's the right size. Use it.
Okay. She goes on. It's well planned, it's thought through, she knows her subject, she's thought about how she can present it, it's audience. If you give kids an audience for their work and nothing else after today, audience raises standards because kids care what their audience thinks. You are not a big enough audience to make the kids care. Okay, they need bigger. Now, cool video, there's a few oohs and ahs, which I didn't get, but thanks for that, no pain felt. I'm going to take that one step further. And she's loaded her video, and the capacity to do this is coming the next few weeks. She's loaded her video into TED to share with the world. And her video is now on there, and she's now got, because she's flipped it, remember the button flip your video? Okay, it's not just the found stuff on YouTube you can do it yourself. So she's got hers, you can watch it, they need to think. And she's had some help here. Why is it important to use a template? She talks about using a template. She's asking a little question of her audience. So she's a publisher now. She's not just writing stuff. Okay? She is a publisher with an audience, a global audience that's being amplified all over the world. So she's within this TED environment. This could be within C2. It should be within C2. So she said, pick an item of clothing you've recently got from a shop, have a look at how it was made, look at the different bits of material, and she's talking about deconstructing. And then finally, think about the work that goes into your clothing. You don't always buy ready meals, so maybe you shouldn't always buy ready clothes either. Okay. Think about her thinking skills. I chose this one because it's not maths or science. I've a lot of science and maths in there today. So think about the thinking skills that she deployed to create that video. Think about how much time it took her. Think about how she'd do that ordinarily, and think about the impact that's had. Now, I'm not saying the kids do this every week, but would you rather make it or let the kids make it? And if they make mistakes, so what? There's a QA process, quality assurance process in there, and that quality assurance should come from her peers reviewing it. Oh, you've missed out a step. Showing how to do that subtraction by adding on. I didn't get it, you've missed out a bit. Okay, we're developing depth of understanding all the time. Okay, and the best way to understand something, as you all know, is to teach it. Flip the classroom in a slightly different way. Okay, we're nearly done. Don't want to do learning catalytics, that's something else. We don't want to go there. Let me just see where I'm... we still don't want to do that. And where's my video? Here we go. Okay, so there she is. Yeah, we don't want to watch the whole thing. I'm leaving this Prezi, by the way, with Carolyn. So if it can go on the website, then you've got it shown in school if you want to show these things. The difference here is the students work with the teacher to develop the questions that go with the content they've created. They've chosen their content based on choice. So within one classroom, you could have 7 or 8 different strands on the same subject matter going forward, but we're all going to learn from each other. So we get breadth and depth at no cost to me, the teacher. They develop the questions with the teacher. They hypothesize. They self-review and peer review, importantly. They learn and support one another. They solve each other's problems. They create those problems in the first place. They initiate the problems to solve. Why should I want to solve a problem that's not mine or not relevant to me? And they make connections between a range of ideas that exist within one classroom rather than just that one idea the teacher would traditionally present to me via the flip or via the standard teaching model. I'm getting breadth and depth without having to invest more time into the lesson, and there's no lid on learning. That can go as far as the kids can take it. There's absolutely no lid. Now, because of the Olympics and London's underground and all of our transportation's stuffed up, as a visual, this is where I want to take it. This is mass personalisation. When you can give the kids those limited choices within the curriculum that they can choose their own pathways and take things in directions that potentially lead nowhere. You get the Black Northern Line and it ends at Morden. After that, it goes nowhere. So maybe the kids come to a dead end, and that's okay. It's part of the learning journey. You learn by sometimes having to fail. But the students can start at any point on the map. And some kids will go on a more direct route, others will pursue something slightly different. Doing things this way, giving the kids the ownership in the lesson, and the ownership and having them develop the content for outside the lesson for everybody else to watch, review, reflect on, I think is much more valuable use of everybody's time than the teacher going away and making streams and streams and streams of videos. That absolutely has its place. I mean, my ideal flip would have a bit of everything in it. Some found content that I direct them to. Stuff they can wrap around that. Stuff that I've made to support their learning that's not going to put pressure on me in terms of time. I've got time back. I don't want to use it all up and a bit more. Okay, and stuff the kids have generated themselves. So just to put it together, it really is pedagogy first. The flip is only a structure that will sit on top of a pedagogical model that you're using in school. You do need to have that quality teaching environment in place already, or else you're wasting everybody's time. The whole teach less, learn more scenario is what this is all about. You get what you ask for with your kids. It is about mass personalisation in a doable way, the fact that you get to spend more time with individual kids in the lesson, doing the things that they find the hardest, the stuff that's the most valuable is the way you engage with that information you present to them. You're spending more time on that, so it's personalised in that sense, but you're also giving kids the chance to choose multiple pathways rather than that one way that you project to the traditional model. Don't fall into the trap, flip good, direct teaching bad. That is absolutely not the case. I'm a huge exponent of the quality direct teaching. So back to where we started with Alan's quote. Who now owns the learning if we can get to this stage where those kids are being creative, they are thinking critically. We put together that video about this with the sewing machine. A whole lot critical thinking went into that. There's a shift in relationships with knowledge and one another. She's producing for an audience. The teacher has created that pathway, has supported the kids in creating that pathway. The role of the teacher, without the teacher involvement here, it would become chaos. The kids are connecting, they're collaborating and they're contributing, not on a global scale in that instance, but I would want that to be happening. If they've got the literacies you need to give them, that's a no-brainer. But they are, if we can follow through the flip in that sense, they are absolutely in control and managing their own learning, so they are 100% more likely to actually engage with whatever goes on within and beyond the classroom space. And I think I'm right on time. So thanks for that. Thank you. I hope you found that useful.
I want to thank Phil for traveling to Denton, Texas to be with us today. And here's a token of our appreciation. And from a curriculum instruction perspective, it's always good to hear that as we talk about technology, it's still about powerful teaching and just changing the way that we can deliver good content, but allow the students to take the ownership at the same time. So thank you so much for being with us today, Phil.
Brilliant.
I think at this time we're dismissed. Your next session starts.